253. The Precept of Charity. Presence of God. O Lord, teach me to love you truly, with my whole heart, my whole soul, and with all my strength. Meditation. 1. Virtue lies in the golden mean. This maxim, which is so exact for the moral virtues, cannot be applied to the theological virtues, which, having an infinite object, can have no limit. The measure of our faith, hope, and charity is to believe, to hope, and to love without measure. However much we love God, we can never love Him too much, nor can we love Him as much as He is lovable. By its very nature, then, the precept of charity admits of no limit, and we could never say, I shall love God up to a certain point, and that will be enough, for by doing so, we would renounce tending toward the perfection of charity, which consists in loving God, in a way that is as nearly proportionate as possible to His infinite lovableness. This is why it is necessary never to stop in the practice of charity, employing all our strength, that it may continually increase in our soul. Because the precept of charity concerns the love of God, the infinite, supreme good, it possesses an absolute character. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, and with thy whole soul, and with thy whole mind, and with thy whole strength. Mk 12:30. If we, so little and so limited, do not employ in the love of God all the little that we have and are, how can we truly tend toward the perfection of charity? If it is not in our power to love God as much as He deserves to be loved, it is, however, possible for us to strive to love Him with our whole strength, and this is exactly the perfection of love which God asks of us. Furthermore, even human love is by its nature totalitarian. The more intimate and intense a friendship, the more it demands the exclusive gift of the heart, and when a friend begins to make reservations, or to give his affection to others, the friendship loses its vigor, grows cold, and may even vanish. Therefore, we must guard against any coldness in our friendship with God, being careful to keep for Him alone the first fruits of our heart, and to employ ourselves wholly in loving Him with all our strength. It is true that only in heaven will we be able to love God with all our strength, and in such a way that our love tends always and actually toward Him. Although this absolute totality and stability in love is not possible to us here on earth, it is possible for us to make an act of love each time that we will to do. So it is always in our power to unite our whole being, heart, affections, will, and desires to God by an act of love. 2. Jesus has said, He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Mt 10:37. Hence, the precept of charity commands us to love God above all things. However, this precept can be interpreted in two ways. To love God more than any creature to the point of being ready to give up everything rather than offend God gravely is the first degree of charity. It is indispensable for all who desire to be friends of God, and to possess His grace, and therefore, it is required of all. But in a more profound sense, to love God above all things means to prefer Him to everything else, not only to what might be an occasion of mortal or venial sin, but even to all that does not fully correspond to His good pleasure. This is the degree of perfect charity, toward which every soul aspiring to intimate friendship with God must tend. This degree requires absolute renouncement and absolute purity, that is, the total absence of every shadow of sin or attachment to creatures. The exercise of perfect charity requires, therefore, a work of total purification, a work that is accomplished only by charity. Charity causes emptiness in the will with respect to all things, since it obliges us to love God above them all. J.C. as 2:6-4. We should be convinced that here on earth the practice of charity is closely united with that of renouncement, each being proportionate to the other. The more perfect and intense is charity, the more total is the renunciation required, but this is so precisely that the soul may attain to loving God with all its strength. The strength of the soul, says the mystical doctor, consists in its faculties, passions, and desires, all of which are governed by the will. Now when these faculties, passions, and desires are directed by the will toward God, and turned away from all that is not God, then the strength of the soul is kept for God, and thus the soul is able to love God with all its strength, as Lhi 16:2. This is the great function of renouncement in respect to charity, to free the powers of the soul so entirely that they can be wholly employed in loving and serving God alone. If we really want to love God with our whole heart, we must be very generous in renunciation and detachment. This in itself is an exercise of love, because it disposes the soul for perfect charity. Colloquy. Q. O Lord God, was it not enough to permit us to love you without its being necessary to invite us to do so by exhortations, even obliging us to do so by commanding it? Yes, O divine goodness, in order that neither your greatness, nor our lowliness, nor any other pretext could prevent us from loving you, you have commanded us to do so. O my God, if we could only comprehend the happiness and honor of being able to love you, how indebted we should feel to you, who not only permit, but command us to love you. O my God, I do not know whether I should love more your infinite beauty which your divine goodness commands me to love, or this goodness of yours which commands me to love such infinite beauty. O beauty of my God, how lovable you are, being revealed to me by your immense goodness. O goodness, how lovable you are, communicating to me such eminent beauty. O Lord, how sweet is this commandment! If it were given to the damned, they would be instantly freed from their sufferings and supreme misfortune, for the blessed enjoy beatitude only by complying with it. O celestial love, how amiable you are to our souls! O divine goodness, may you be blessed eternally, you, who so urgently command us to love you, although your love is so desirable and necessary for our happiness, that, without it, we could only be unhappy. O Lord, in heaven we shall need no commandment to love you, for our hearts, attracted and ravished by the vision of your sovereign beauty and goodness, will necessarily love you eternally. There our hearts will be wholly free of passions, our souls will be completely delivered from distractions, our minds will have no anxieties, our powers will have no repugnances, and therefore we shall love you with a perpetual, uninterrupted love. But in this mortal life, we cannot achieve such a perfect degree of love, because, as yet, we do not have the heart, the soul, the mind, or the powers of the blessed. Nevertheless, You desire us to do in this life everything that depends on ourselves to love you with all our heart and all the strength we have. This is not only possible, but very easy, for to love you, O God, is a sovereignly lovable thing. Compare Saint Francis de Sales,